Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today for our January edition of Pitch Perfect. There will be forward-looking information in today's presentation, so just be mindful of the fact that there can be no assurances that forward-looking information will prove to be accurate, as actual results may vary and future events may differ materially. So be mindful of that in today's session. So with that in mind, I would like to give a quick introduction for Jamstack. So Jamstack is creating audio products for all musicians to play, collaborate, and share their music. So with that in mind, Chris, I'd like to turn it over to you to get things started for your presentation today.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. Chris Prendergast here, founder and CEO of Jamstack. As you mentioned, playing, collaborating, and sharing music is what we're trying to do. Our mission statement is we're trying to make playing, creating, and consuming music more enticing, accessible, and social. So it's a pretty lofty goal, and hopefully by the end you'll see how we're meeting that objective. The analogy we like to make is from the smartphone camera and how the camcorder evolving into that, everyone having these expensive devices that were pretty limited, and again, not that ubiquitous, to everyone having 4K video recording in your pocket, the ability to edit that content, share it, consume it on the same device, and how transformational that has been in video. We are driving that same innovation in audio, which requires both hardware and software, which is why at Jamstack, we are working on both. Playing, collaborating, and sharing is how we like to describe the problem that we're addressing. All of our products and services help musicians of all kinds to do these three things. We started with the electric guitar, so using that as our first analogy here. Playing for an electric guitar player, everyone can picture a guitar amp in their head. They're heavy. They haven't changed in 70 years. The UI on them is terrible. They don't have any intelligence built in. They don't network. They don't do much on their own. You understand. Collaboration is nowhere near where it could be, nowhere near where it is in the video space. There are tools like Duet on TikTok, which are reaching massive scale, but really doing like a proper session with drums and guitars and vocals is still very difficult. It's very bespoke and it's very outdated. And sharing your music is also is nowhere near where it should be as it is with video. Of course, it's easy to put a selfie camera on yourself, but sharing real full compositions in a format that can then be collaborated with doesn't exist at the moment. So here are our two flagship products. We have the Jamstack 2, which is the world's only attachable guitar amplifier. It's also a smart amp, modeling amp, and does a whole bunch of other things, which I'll demo for you in a minute. And then we also have, and that's launching this quarter, by the way, along with our accessories ecosystem. We also have an online collaboration app that is in development, which we're incredibly excited about. These products work together. However, they are independent and they don't require each other to work. So really quick history, started with the Jamstack 1, did $2 million in sales in the 12 months we were selling, got 2 huge patents. If you can see my camera briefly, I will show you just kind of how this thing works and how fun and engaging it can be. So we've got, I've got it here attached onto my guitar. Put the camera down really quick. These effects actually getting processed by the phone itself. And because my phone is right here, I can access my music, play it out of my guitar, and play along to whatever I want, which is incredibly fun. And you don't have to know the solo, you can just noodle around. It's incredibly fun. Now, we're following that up with the Jamstack 2, which not only does everything the Jamstack 1 can do, but also has built-in effects. So you don't need your phone at all. You can literally pick up and play that quickly with your electric guitar. It's faster, even faster than you can with an acoustic. So that's the user experience that we're going for. It is the only amp in the world that's attachable. It's the only amp in the world you can plug your amp in for third-party effects, like I was doing. It's also the best Bluetooth speaker for its size and weight anywhere. and it's the only amp in the world with a built-in transmitter, which you can blast out to your home theater system. So very unique product. Okay, really quick on our online collaboration software. We want to change how music is distributed for the modern musician. So instead of when you listen to music on Spotify, you have no access to the instruments that were recorded. And that's how all music is made, but that information gets destroyed. We're distributing it in a different way. We've got a licensing agreement with Stingray to make this all happen. You can think of it as karaoke for musicians. This is licensed music and original music. It starts as a subscription platform, and then we're going to move into the NFT space, allowing musicians to mint music as they make it and hopefully earn some revenues from any virality that happens. We've got an amazing team on the FrontFundr platform. I recommend you go on there and check it out. You can scan this QR code to get there if you like, and I would love to take any questions. Thank you.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Chris. Really loved the demonstration there. That was incredible. Just a reminder to everyone joining in today, we are open to a Q&A period after each pitch, so feel free to ask your questions directly to the Q&A. I definitely love to get things started. I know I'm not the most experienced in the music space, but I do know from what I can see on movies and television how much equipment there is to bring around to kind of each session where you might be playing on the go. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about, I guess, how the current setup really makes it a challenge for musicians to play anywhere, anytime, and how you guys are revolutionizing that.
Yeah, so let's talk about the average Joe, and then we can go into others as well. So you might need a whole room really to kind of have your setup set up. Every effect you want to do, every pedal's about $100. Every time you change it, it doesn't have any memory. They all affect each other. So it's like you want to sound like this guy and play along to this music. It's several minutes to fiddle around and see if you can get back there. And the setup time is debilitating. A small change in convenience drives a huge change in behavior. People give up because of how annoying it is, and dragging it out of the closet, all those types of things. So aggregating it into one device so that it's literally as effortless and taking all the friction away completely changes the experience for people, and we think it's going to help people keep playing and play more.
That's incredible. Absolutely. So maybe tell us a little bit more as well about how your approach to kind of music creation, distribution, all of that is different from the competitors.
Right. So there's two ways, I guess, music is kind of made. So you either kind of like find musicians and you like record it in like home studio or professional studio, or there's a huge process right now with TikTok, Duet, and also apps like Smule where you can sing along, right? Or kind of do one thing with another person. It's incredibly fun. I've had fun doing it. Millions of people do it every day. However, it's not set up for like a proper song. You need tools. You need what's called a DAW, digital audio workstation, where you can cut and copy and paste and add layers and actually fill out a proper composition. So we're creating an analogous platform designed for musicians by musicians so that you can make music as fast as you could do a TikTok duet, but actually like a full composition, like a song you might hear on the radio, and then also remix that yourself and have a lot of fun with it.
That's amazing. We have a couple questions coming in from the audience here, so we'll try and get through as many as we can. One is from Peter, just saying that they saw the demo of the Jamstack 1 and how your phone was able to display the music chords. So they're wondering if that's also going to be possible on the Jamstack app too.
Yeah, so it's a built-in audio interface, which means that audio from any instrument, not just a guitar, but it's certainly optimized for a guitar, goes directly in your phone. And then you can use third-party apps, and again, the only app in the world, so you can listen to you play while backing tracks are going on, while you're changing how your guitar sounds. And yes, it can there are apps that we haven't created but exist that identify chords, that listen to you and coach you and tell you what you're doing wrong, like Musician, and there's a few others. It's amazing, and they work so much better when you plug in, because otherwise they'd have to listen using the mic, and it's not as accurate, and ambient noise around messes all that up. And so anyway, all other apps that already exist become better from the hardware.
That's great. And another question we had come through is just how heavy is the attachable speaker, and does the weight have any impact on distribution or anything like that?
Yeah, fair question. So we had a weight budget so that when you lift your hands up, you don't get any kind of pitching in the guitar, and you could put a blindfold on and you'd never know that it was there. The amp itself ends up or sorry, the amp itself is about 800 grams. That's turns out that's kind of where the limit you want to be. So we found a way through finding and designing some of the best 2.5-inch drivers and creating the smallest box possible, and cutting the weight and looking at every piece of plastic so that we could basically get the biggest sound out of the smallest package.
Perfect. Another question from the audience as well was just a little bit about how large the market is for a device like this.
Yeah, there's a huge misconception, and I didn't have enough time to talk about market but about the size of both markets. And another problem is that so it's just amplifiers in general, in North America, just for the guitar space is around $2 billion, which some people think is, but that is artificially small because no one's buying new amplifiers. They're just going online and everyone's exchanging them on Kijiji because they haven't changed. Yeah. So we have a competitor that has an amp that's not battery powered, not attachable, but it's like full range and can do backing tracks. And they're doing over 30 million US a year with an inferior product. And we think that's just the start. So it's a pretty healthy market.
That's amazing. Before we sign off today on your section there, would just love to ask for investors who are listening today, maybe you can just let them a little bit know about why they should invest in Jamstack as an investment opportunity.
So we've got hardware with proven traction that's launching this year. It's like the really exciting time. It's been 2 years in development, and it's finally kind of like we're right on the cusp of really hitting a new milestone, reaching profitability. And then the software, which will have a beta out in Q4 once we close our round, is a really massive scale. We know that it's going to have a large value for musicians. I think there's no question around that. Whether it reaches the scale of TikTok is yet to be seen, but it has that potential. It's a really, really big opportunity. So we've got two different kinds of opportunity. They support each other. They reduce the customer acquisition cost of each other. And no one is addressing the musician problem from both angles. We're like, look at Fender, look at Marshall, look at what they're doing, and look at what we're doing, and we're so different. And you can see that they can't offer the same value to musicians that we can.
That's great. Thanks so much for the presentation today, Chris. Fantastic job. And now I'd like to turn things over to the Mash by Hitch Brewing, a repeat issuer of ours who's back on the platform for another campaign. And they're crafting upcycled pizza with the spent grain made from their craft beers. So Kyle, tell us a little bit more about the Mash by Hitch.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Tristan. I appreciate everybody showing up for the presentation today. I want just to pull this up for you guys. So like Trieste introduced, we were a Hitch Brewing company, and we had brought the Mash to the market right in the heart of the first lockdown during COVID, which most of thought was kind of crazy, but we did it, and it's been fairly successful. So the business model is we came out of the gates in 2016 manufacturing craft beer. We've sold to the market to over 900 unique clients between liquor stores and restaurants. And again, this is throughout Alberta. We've got an award-winning ale from a Papa Bear cereal ale, which is grains from within 100 kilometers of our brewery. So it's an all Canadian grain bill. And we've always been focused on growth through vertical integration, which means we manufacture the product that we sell to on a retail level as well as wholesale. So our vertical integration is one brought through from our restaurant, our flagship location in Cochrane, where the brewery is, and through additional locations from the new model, the Mash. So to get into the Mash model, so what it is it's dine-in, takeout, and delivery. So what we wanted to do with it was we considered it the Starbucks of beer. We wanted the dine-in to be more culture-driven. So when you come in, there's no rush to turn over tables because we have the takeout and delivery side of things. We use our own in-house online menu, so we avoid the majority of those costs from like Skip the Dishes, Uber Eats, things like that. We still use them because they do have a marketing component that we utilize. But the biggest thing about this model is it's repeatable. It's a low cost of capital to put up. The kitchen equipment bill is very small, the build out is very small, and the cost of operations is also very minimal. You don't require a whole lot of labor to run each location. Not to the same from the vertical integration side of things. Like I said, we manufacture the beer that we sell at the locations. We have 8 taps currently at each, and we fill them all. With some exceptions, we'll bring in a guest tap here and there for gluten-free options like ciders and meads and things like that. But we wanted to make sure that we captured all of the costs across the board, and then as far as the upcycle nutritional byproduct, we use the spent grains, which is kind of the unintended golden egg in this whole venture. We use the spent grains from our brewing process in the pizza dough, and so it's created a whole different flavor of crust for the guests. And one of my favorite quotes on Facebook is, "Don't insult the crust by using a dip," which I thought was just beautiful. And so we've been working on new products to use the spent grains because we produce so much of it. We do about 1 metric ton of spent grains per batch. So we're at no real risk of running out of that. And so we'll just keep on building new things. So as Trias mentioned, we have been with FrontFundr before. When we went through the first round with FrontFundr, we had 2 locations operating at the time, with 1 under construction. Now we are operating, a very short period of time after, we are operating out of 5 locations, 4 of which are 5 are under construction right now, 4 of which are set to open in Q1 this year. And then we've taken possession on the 5th one already. We'll begin construction on that right away. And then we have another one that we take possession of in April at the new farmers market just outside of the Canadian Olympic Park here in Calgary, Alberta. So we've proven the model. We know that it works, and it's very repeatable, and we can grow it very quickly. And the wonderful thing about where we're at now is we have developers that are working with us, building to spec versus having to go out and find locations. So we've been very blessed to be able to have locations lined up for us. So that is kind of the the long and short. We suffer from the same time constraints, as Chris mentioned. There's so much more to it. So certainly happy to take as many questions as I possibly can, and see where we go from there.
Awesome, Kyle. Thanks so much for the great presentation there. Love the quote about the crust and dip. I know I'm someone who does eat pizza with a dip and would be very eager to try the incredible pizza crust you guys have built. I'd be interested to hear a little bit more about, I guess, how the idea of using that spent grain in your pizza crust actually came to be. Obviously, having this, I guess, kind of waste come off of the brewing process. How do you guys, I guess, come to the idea to see if you could repurpose this into food products?
Well, I mean, because we've always had, throughout the process of establishing ourselves as a brewery, we've done so many, craft beer from so much craft beer from a home scale perspective. So we've always been left over with the stuff that we knew you could use for baking, compost, cattle feed, whatever. So actually, out of the gates, we send all of our spent grains to livestock, so it never went to waste. But with that being said, it was always something that we knew had an application. We just never really walked down that path from a large scale perspective. The MASH model, was built out of like I said, the low cost, low scale, and we knew that was the avenue to make that happen. And for us, it was like I said, it was the hidden golden egg, right? It was just kind of a marketing thing for us to use the spent grains, and all of a sudden, it just took off. All the media coverage that we had about it, we sent it off for testing, so it is a much higher protein, much higher fiber content that you're adding to the dough, and whatever, and a number of other nutritional values that add to it as well. So like I said, when it comes to product development, like we've got the grains now well stored. We're moving down the next level of dehydrating, so we can do all sorts of things like cinnamon rolls and banana breads and all sorts of fun stuff. So this kind of was the avenue for us to really expand on the potential, I guess.
Yeah, that's an incredible food innovation there, and really being able to think up all those ways that you can use the product. So that's fantastic. I know one thing that I'm always interested in when I see you going from location to location is how unique you guys do set up each location. There's a bit of a different design to each, and you get kind of its own personal flair there. So how do you, I guess, set up the locations in each community and come up with a bit of the design and the feel for the MASH location there?
It's almost I guess it's almost as intensive as throwing a dart at a map from 20 feet away. I mean, when it came down to the construction side of things, for the first 2 locations, it was my dad and I that did 85% of the build out ourselves. And so realistically, it came down to, okay, we just did the rough ends. Now to put the walls up, what do you think would look good over here? What do you think would look good over here? And so, there was really nothing scientific or processed about it. But, as we've been growing, the luxury to be able to have that level of creativity in a short time frame you don't really have it. So we have standardized at least the decor as far as the color patterns, the wainscoting on the walls, the bar, the concrete countertops, stuff like that. But I mean, now we have a great construction crew. There's 4 individuals, and they don't have to ask me too many questions at this point, because usually I just tell them to get creative, and they do, and seemingly they love their job because of it. So, but like I said, we're working with developers now, building to spec. So they love what they see as far as the design. We've got a lot of commercial residential locations that they just feel that their residents would not love nothing more to come and relax in a place like that. So you don't want to change it too much, but you do want to make sure that it can evolve continuously, in other aspects.
For sure, absolutely. And you mentioned during your presentation as well just how much you've grown since your first campaign, which is really exciting. And as well as that, I know for your new campaign, you're raising under a higher valuation, higher share price as well. So with that in mind, maybe you could just tell everyone a little bit about how those funds are going to be put to use, and what that growth really means from a business perspective as well.
For sure. Yeah. So, I mean, as far as the use of funds, obviously, the majority would go towards additional growth through locations. We do have other properties right now that are kind of in the wings waiting to be signed, and the majority of these funds would go towards that. As you grow as a company, you also need, your G&A. So, from an accounting perspective, from an administrative perspective, and currently we do that all in-house. The people that are on at each location, they're not responsible for payroll. They're barely responsible for inventory. All of our systems kind of account for all that stuff, and so we make their lives as easy as possible so they can have fun with the guests. But as far as the use of funds go, like I said, we can put up these locations relatively quick and for relatively low cost. So if we were to raise the full amount of $2.5 million, roughly, then we could. I would say we would be able to grow exponentially and exceed our projections even, more exponentially. Like right now we have the 5 locations that we're finishing off here in Q1, with the 5 that we have. Very shortly after that, because we'll be getting into spring and summer, we'll hit critical mass to where you can grow sustainably through organic cash flow. What we, I guess, as a family, whether it's myself or even my dad, we are very aggressive when it comes to growth. I always get asked when it comes to why did you make a brewery? Well, it was never because I wanted to drink beer. I never drank up until 3 years ago. So it was always a financial exercise. My job as the CEO is to make sure that the shareholders get the biggest bang for their buck. We've removed a lot of the risk from a wholesale perspective by generating our own tap space and retail space. We've proven the model works. We've shown positive EBITDA for the last 2 years during COVID, and so the risk aspect has been reduced significantly, and our ability to grow into new markets, because we have part of the MASH model. We use a central distribution location, which has a 900 square foot walk-in cooler. So we can send our product to anywhere, whether it's Canada and the States, to that one location, have another 5 or so mashes around it, and then you're not really at risk for other wholesalers as far as, whether they pull your product or things like that. The wholesale becomes the secondary and marketing note versus your primary source of distribution. So that's kind of what we have as far as the forefront is concerned. And so we found our growth strategy. We're gonna knock it out of the park.
That's great. I know I'm in BC. All your locations are in Alberta right now, so I'm definitely eager for you guys to make your way out to the coast here. But I think those expansion plans for the business are great, and I'm really excited to see where you guys are headed. So thanks so much for the presentation today, Kyle. Really appreciate it there. So now I'd like to turn things over to another repeat issuer of ours. We've got Westbow Capital. They are a private real estate fund with a portfolio across Western Canada. They've already done their first fund on the FrontFundr platform, and now they're raising for their second fund, which is going to be on the FrontFundr platform as well. So Marcus, I'll leave it to you to take it away.
All right, great. Thanks for the intro there, Trieste, and yeah, thanks for hosting today. I mean, we really enjoyed being on the platform already on our first offering, and I'm excited to be back on again. And we put a lot of work and effort in this last year structuring this next fund. So yeah, today we're talking about the real estate investment opportunity that we have with Westbow Capital. Once again, my name is Marcus Cron. I'm the investor relations manager here. And just to kick things off, I want to tell a little bit about the background of the company, just to know who you're investing with. We share this just because, like, to show the track record and, you know, that we've been in business a long time, had a lot of success in real estate. So as a group right now, we've got over $550 million of assets under management, over 150 employees. And those numbers just keep on growing month after month, just with the growth that we experience and, you know, with new acquisitions that we make. But I mean, we've operated primarily in real estate and agriculture, those two industries, for the last 40 plus years. So yeah, I got a lot of experience in this space. I want to kick it off with the problem that we're seeing. It's probably been a lot of talks this last year or two, or even years past before that, just about how expensive housing is. It's become like a, you know, some people will call it a crisis with the cost, you know, how fast prices have increased, especially in major markets in Canada like BC and Alberta, or BC and Ontario. People are having a hard time, you know, first-time home buyers or anybody really having a hard time owning their own home, let alone investing in real estate. And but there's that age-old saying that 90% of millionaires become so through owning real estate. So I mean, there's a great opportunity to build wealth through real estate, but a lot of people just can't do it because they can't access it. They can't come up with a big down payment or qualify for a mortgage. So that's where we come in with Westbow Capital. We've structured a real estate fund that allows people to invest into a portfolio of residential rentals that we manage at stabilized and value add rentals, as well as rentals that we build through a separate arm of our business, Westbow Construction, which is a developer. So some of the advantages of this fund in particular is that it's tax efficient. You get to utilize your TFSA and RRSP. You get to leverage that experience that we've had in the business for over 40 years. So you get to rely on professional management rather than you going out and buying a single rental on your own and potentially making some mistakes that you would and you know, be at risk of losing money because you're not as experienced. And then you get to pool your investments with others as well. So you don't have to come up with that big down payment. We've set it so you can invest as low as $6,000 and participate in a large diversified portfolio rather than just investing one rental. Now you're participating in, you know, a multi-million-dollar portfolio with you know, many units. So I want to talk about some of the examples of properties that we look to acquire. These are actually, you know, we're calling it our pipeline properties that we're going to be closing on relatively soon. So Horizon falls under that strategy of us building them within Westbow Construction, our development arm of the business, and then selling them to the fund. And there's some advantages. I can get into detail a little later on that, but it's 46 units, it's townhomes. And then as we complete them, they get purchased into the fund and rented out. And the next one would be Fairway Gardens in Saskatchewan. It's 116 units. It's a mix of apartment units as well as townhomes. So excited about that one that we're looking to close on in February. The return drivers of this fund is, you know, through equity growth. We're putting mortgages on the properties, and then renters pay the rent, and then we pay the mortgage with that, which increases the equity position of the fund. And then a big focus is positive cash flow, so we can pay out distributions to investors, and then asset appreciation, which we've seen a lot of in the last, especially couple of years, the market going up in value, or by us going in and actually forcing some appreciation by doing renovations or operational improvements. So in summary, the fund is targeting a 9 to 12% annualized return. Inclusive in that is a 60 cent per unit distribution, and we paid out monthly. So, I mean, given the unit price that we have currently, that equates to just over 6%. It's about a 6.2%, I believe, at this point in time, annualized distribution. So that is the summary of our fund, and all my details are there if you have more questions. And also the link to our FrontFundr campaign is up there as well. So you can visit and view more of the information, or potentially look to start the investment process.
All right, great. Thanks so much, Marcus. Definitely, housing crisis is a very real issue for a lot of people who are trying to get into the market, or even find a way to invest in the market. So you obviously have a portfolio across Western Canada. So maybe tell us a little bit more about why you selected the West Coast for your portfolio, or what the benefits are to the West Coast. I think a lot of people just think high prices. How do you really, benefit from a real estate investment in that type of market? So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, in particular, in regards to like your comment on high prices, yeah, that's particularly true, especially in BC where we primarily operate. But I mean, that's why we go and focus across Western Canada, where we're going from BC all the way out to Manitoba, where you get some pretty good diversity in types of markets. So then, BC is typically a high price market with high appreciation potential. But I mean, if you're just banking on investing in a property, hoping it'll go up in value and thinking, hey, it'll just keep going, there's some risk there because you're speculating. So we want to balance that out with some cash flow markets as well, where you're purchasing at a lower purchase price with higher cash flow potential. So that's where we look into the prairie provinces, where you can find some great opportunities as well. And then in particular, why we focus on Western Canada is because, I mean, that's where we've operated primarily for the last 40 years. So we know the space, we've got relationships, connections, we understand the market. So the saying is we're playing in our own sandbox, our own backyard. Like this is the space that we know, the markets that we know.
Absolutely. And I find it really interesting as well, just the Westbow group of companies and how you are able to leverage the relationship with the construction company who's building these units and then include those as part of the fund. So maybe you can explain a little bit more about that relationship and what the benefits are.
Yeah, and those are, I mean, I didn't touch on it too much on the presentation there, but essentially they operate there. It's a group of companies, but they're two separate entities. So, I mean, the fund itself that manages rentals doesn't actually take on the development, right? Because that's a different risk return profile, can be riskier. So we do the development within Westbow Construction, and then we can look to sell it. So we build them specifically for the rental market. We call them purpose-built rentals. And then we can sell them directly to the fund. And the benefit of doing that is because as the developer, now we have less holding costs. We have less, we don't have to pay these large realtor commissions or marketing fees to market to sell it to a third party. So a lot of those cost savings can get passed on directly to the fund. So essentially we're buying the brand new purpose-built rentals at below what it would sell for on the open market, which, is an instant equity increase or benefit to the investors in the fund.
That's great. I like the term purpose built as well. I feel like you guys really get to then ensure there's a very strong quality to the development as well, which is so huge. We have had a couple of questions come through the chat as well. One that is a little bit just what was the size of the first fund they're curious about. And I know I wanted to touch on a bit of some traction points from the first fund as well. So maybe you can just tell us a little bit about that first fund and how that worked.
Yeah, so the first fund was it was structured in a way that it's a closed-ended fund. So it had a finite life where it's like we only accepted investors for a certain period of time. And then we at approximately 5 years of holding properties, we sell them all. So it capped at a certain amount, and we had $90 million worth of properties in that fund and still currently do. So that's kind of the reason why in this fund itself that we're talking today, it will get much larger. That it's because it's open-ended fund. Like we don't stop accepting investors and we just keep growing the portfolio. But in regards to your comment on traction points in that fund, it's performed extremely well, meeting our targeted returns that we're projecting. We've had great traction, and like a certain little case study here is this is an example of how we go in, buy a property. It might not be performing as good as it can be. This was being managed by a third-party property manager, Colliers International, which a lot of people would recognize that name. But yeah, they were managing it, had over 7% vacancy rate. And we typically go in and try to find stuff where it's not performing the best. We can look to drop the vacancy rate, which you can see we took over the property management in-house from Colliers within our internal property management group. ProKey Living is the name of the company. And within a month there, we dropped it from an average 7% vacancy rate to 0.9%. And then the following month, it was down to 0%. So, just shows an example of how we go in and look to add value and make quick turnarounds to make sure the properties are performing as optimally as possible.
That's great. Absolutely. I think that's a fantastic proof point for what you guys do for sure. We do have a question through the Q&A from Kathy asking a little bit about what the rules around withdrawing from this fund are, set dates, timing, etc.
Yeah, so this fund is set up. It's a private fund, so there's less liquidity than particularly you'd see in the public market. We typically tell investors view this as 5-year investment, although you can get it out earlier than that, there's some penalties involved if you pull it out earlier than, I think, depending on the series of units you come in, typically less than 4 years or less than 3 years, you're going to have some level of a penalty for pulling it out early. But after that fact, or after that time period, you can, leave it in for 20 years or 10 years and kind of pick your time when it makes the most sense to redeem. Essentially, you're buying in at a unit price or a share price. And then, 5 years or 10 years down the road, you look at it and say, hey, I bought in at $10 a unit now that units were $20. And that's how you derive what your return would be and how much appreciation of your investment has happened based on the unit price.
That's great. And, being a fund, you've got a higher minimum investment than some of our other campaigns, a $6,000 minimum investment. However, you're a different investment type. It's an interest, a dividend producing investment. So maybe just, tell the listeners today quickly, why to invest in this fund.
Yeah, I mean, I highlighted some of the examples as well. I mean, like it's a lot of people have seen it. A lot of people probably experienced it themselves. Like you can create significant wealth in real estate. And we just saw like a gap where like people just didn't have access to it. It's becoming harder and harder to afford to rent or to live, to own a place or to invest in a place. So we wanted to create a fund that allowed people to do that and then rely on our expertise. You hear the saying, and what makes a good real estate investment or property is like location, location, location. Right. And I've heard somebody told me this before, like what makes a good investment in the private equity or private investment space? It comes down to management. Right. So, and that's why I kind of highlight those examples of how long we've been in business, the success we have, and how many assets we're managing already. But particularly a fund like this, just being in real estate, like I think it's such an important thing to do right now. Just because of the environment we're in the economic cycle with so much inflation happening. And you actually, if you look at a chart, you look over the last 20 years, when you hit inflation and, the government's essentially printing money or creating money and adding to the money supply in the economy. And there's such a close correlation over the last 20 years of increasing the money supply with how much housing prices have gone up in value. So money supply has gone up 380%, 381% since 2000. And home prices have gone up about 321% on a national housing index. So it's really important to look for ways to protect yourself against that inflation because it's here and it's going to be around for a little while. So that's why we just think it's important to look at hard assets like real estate to protect yourself.
That's great. Thanks so much, Marcus. Wonderful job on the presentation today. Really appreciate you having come back for Fund 2. And now I'd like to turn things over to Barry, the CEO of eQuo. eQuo is building a platform that connects entrepreneurs with the resources that they need to succeed, which is a very important mission there. So Barry, tell us a little bit more about eQuo.
So first, thanks, Trieste. I'm Barry Hillier, founder of eQuo. I'd like to start by sharing a video that I think many of us have experienced. No, that'll never work. Probably not. You're an entrepreneur, and it doesn't matter what they think, because you won't stop chasing your dreams. We get it. Welcome to eQuo, a revolution in funding and capital solutions. Built by entrepreneurs, for entrepreneurs, and the people who fund them. Visit equoshift.com. We've all heard no far too often. The reality is that 90% of entrepreneurs are building small companies, but our ecosystem is built for scale-ups pursuing billion-dollar valuations. There's an irony, though, that 90% of accredited investors who'd rather invest in businesses and industries that they understand with business models that make sense to them before going out chasing unicorns. But they don't have access to those entrepreneurs. There's a mismatch in the marketplace. eQuo is changing that. We're building the first matchmaking platform to connect small business with investors, capital, and customers. So founders can hear yes from the investors and capital providers to grow. eQuo will be the first global distributed marketplace with recommendation engines based on data tagging, natural language tokens, and AI that discover what entrepreneurs need and match them to investors, lenders, and capital providers based on aligned criteria and mutual fit. This allows for greater deal flow. And because we're adding accredited investors who aren't part of the traditional ecosystem, as well as retail investors and alternative fintech, we're creating more opportunities for entrepreneurs to find the capital they need. Together, we prove that small really is big. We're a for-profit social enterprise with multiple revenue streams being reinvested into new features and markets as we grow. And our market is global, with 583 million small businesses and tens of millions of investors and capital providers who need our platform. And our goal is to IPO in 5 to 8 years. We intend to provide financial ROI in your investment, but it also is going to have greater impact. eQuo will reduce barriers to funding and capital, as well as the costs. We're increasing approvals through greater funding and credit alternatives and helping small business grow, improving economies, adding jobs, and solving big problems. Be part of our journey. Together, we can show that you're never too small to make a big difference. So I look forward to answering your questions.
Thanks so much, Barry. Great presentation, and I love the video there. Definitely being an entrepreneur is a challenge. You have to wear so many hats. There are so many things that you need to do for the business to get it off the ground. So I'd love it if you can walk myself and the audience through a typical user journey for an entrepreneur on the eQuo platform and what resources you're able to provide them along the way.
No, absolutely. So what we've done is we've created a logic layer. So when a user goes in, and this is the case for investors as well as capital providers, but when an entrepreneur goes in, they're creating a profile, and on that profile, they're indicating everything about who they are. But that's also including things like founder composition, the industries that they're working in. It's including key information, whether or not they're utilizing AI or certain technologies. What is the size and the scale of their company? What's the stage of their company? And all of this meta tag data, what that's allowing us to do is to actually find the right corresponding investors and capital providers in order to properly create a match that isn't going to waste either party's time. Because too often you have a lot of capital providers or investors who are getting hundreds of applications. But the reality is it's a very small group that's actually really applicable in terms of fit. So we're removing all of that by creating the right matching and allowing that to then create opportunities for other investors who are really the right matches to be connected with other entrepreneurs. And so that's basically the foundation of what we're looking for within the platform.
That's great. Thanks so much. And I know one thing you mentioned during the presentation is being a social enterprise. And I know a big mission of what you do is being able to support the historically underestimated and underrepresented founders by providing them, equal access to the resources that they need. So perhaps you could tell us a little bit about how you're doing this and how you're doing it differently than what the current status quo is.
Yeah, one of the things that I think is really important, especially at a time, and rightfully so, that people are really focused on specific groups of founders. The reality is we've stopped making comments like, oh, they're marginalized. Because when you actually add up female founders, when you add up Black founders, when you add up Indigenous founders, they represent the majority of the businesses that are out there. But they're not the only people that are being underestimated. It's small businesses under $10 million. We've got this huge focus on large scaling companies. So what we're doing is we're creating a platform that, as well as creating the transactional and the correct matches to form a distributed marketplace, we're democratizing the opportunity so that founders are being financed and they're able to get found based on their ideas, based on the market traction. But we're also able, because we're indicating what founder composition and industries are, we're able to now find allies of those people. So if there are investors who are specifically looking for very specific groups or even industries, because industries that aren't tech have been underestimated as well. The reality is you have agriculture industries, manufacturing industry, retail industries. Look at what we've just seen today. Not every single company is going to be a SaaS-based model in tech, and those are companies that need to find funding as well. So our platform is going to be able to connect all of these underestimated companies with the people who actually are looking for them, because a lot of the investors, including retail investors that are a major part of crowdfunding solutions like FrontFundr, we have 24 million Canadians that can be investing via crowdfunding, and we've got 1 million accredited investors. Well, that's a lot more funding out there, and they're really interested in finding the local companies like MASH and Jamstack and everybody that we've just seen just today alone.
Absolutely. I think definitely it's a big task. And I think, the numbers that you presented just show how much of an impact can be had by giving everyone these opportunities, which is truly incredible. I know as part of building the business, companies are often searching for securing advisors, funding, professional services, and that's a big part of what you're able to do as well. So maybe you can explain to those who are perhaps a little less familiar, just what's that process currently like, and how are you making that easier?
Yeah, currently what's happening is most ecosystems are either closed ecosystems where you happen to know somebody because you're in the right network. But generally speaking, there are a considerably large amount of resources, not just capital resources, but human resources. If you take a look at boomers as an example, not only are they about to transfer $750 billion of money down to younger generations, there are also people that they're looking to be advisors. They're looking to be able to take part in startups and growth companies. So the same algorithms that we've created to create the early matches to find capital resources, we will be later employing as we build out our roadmap towards basically human capital as well. And so what that's going to allow us to do is to pull in talent. It's going to allow us to pull in advisors. And these are the things that once you get funding, you need to execute on that funding, and that takes people. And so the reason why we're starting with funding first is it's a pretty critical area that every business right now is starving for. Our goal is Q1 funding and capital solutions of this year. Q2, we're going to be introducing the marketplace. And that's where you're going to be able to find customers within our platform. Because at the end of the day, the best form of funding is paying customers. And then later, as we grow, that's then when we're going to start to pull in all of the human capital resources that all of these businesses desperately need to truly be able to scale.
That's great. Absolutely. I know you had used earlier the term distributed and talking a bit about growing using a distributed approach. So how is that unique to what you guys are doing?
Where it's unique is we're taking all of the resources and we're actually including them within the ecosystem. What tends to happen right now is you have that mismatch. And a perfect example might be somebody might be interested in agriculture that's in the Maritimes, and you're going to have a fantastic, incredible company that's in Saskatchewan, but they can't find one another. And so current models, they're not playing a part. So you've got wasted resources at a time when you have demand. So a distributed model is actually making use of incorporating all of the available resources, all of these alternatives, and starting to pull them in so you don't have wasted resources. At the end of the day, there will always be more demand than supply, but we have more supply than what is currently being able to get found. And so our goal through a distributed model is to close that gap. So we're maximizing the current ecosystem with all resources instead of focusing just on traditional.
That's great. Thanks so much, Barry. Fantastic job on the presentation today. I loved learning more about eQuo. For those with questions about eQuo and what they're doing, or who are interested in making an investment, I do encourage you to go visit their campaign page at frontfundr.com/eQuo. And now I'd like to turn it over to Raja of Sooo Ketolicious to deliver today's last presentation for the day. So Raja, please introduce yourselves and Sooo Ketolicious, who are making ketogenic products, starting with pizza crust and pie crust. I'd love to hear more. Oh, Raja, I think you're on mute still. No worries.
There you go. Sorry about that.
Perfect.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us and thank you for the opportunity. My name is Raja and I am the founder and the CEO of Sooo Ketolicious. Sooo Ketolicious was started in 2018 after I made the transition to eating better and healthier by adopting the ketogenic diet because of my family's diabetes history and the excess weight of my pregnancy then, and inflammations that came with that as well. So that is how Sooo Ketolicious was started. 1 second, sorry. Yeah, there you go. Our mission was to create products that are high in fat and low in carb. Keto is about both having low carb and including the higher fat content. But at that time, as a keto consumer, I didn't have a lot of options 3 years ago. There wasn't really much a lot. And those products that were labeled as keto didn't really fit the strict keto diet that I was following. So that is how I started making my own products at home, and at first eating them myself and my family. And then I started going to farmers market, and there was a crazy market for it. I would sell out in 2 hours, sometimes even less, and people already making pre-orders for the next Saturday that I go to the farmers market. So my husband and I realized there is a market for this and we should capitalize on it as we go in our health journey. At that time, I forgot about that. Our solution was to create then great tasting products and that are free of GMOs, that are gluten-free and grain-free, and that are high in good fats and low in carb. We had a variety of products at that time that were being sold in Ottawa in stores, but we started to think about what we need to scale. And that was our best-selling product, which is our pizza crust. And it comes in 2 sizes, a 12-inch and a 9-inch. In my hand is the 9-inch right now. It comes in a very innovative packaging where it is very thin and it's easy to store in your freezer, and it's also easy and lighter to ship to our clients in the US and across Canada as well. We did also make our own custom-made display box for retailers in stores, and those are being used right now to display our products in their freezers. And basically, once they get them, they just like put them like this, and it goes like this on the freezer. So it's kind of like in your face whenever they're easy to spot on the shelves. When the product is done, they're still going to be easy to spot on the shelf, as people are going to see like, oh, so there is Sooo Ketolicious here, or there's a keto product here. I would like to know what it is. So it's easier for the store as well to realize that they need to restock. 1 second, there you go. So in 2018, when we started, as I said, I was selling on farmers market. And then that same year, before the year ended, we were selling in our local health stores in Ottawa. Rainbow Food was one of them. And in February 19, we launched our online selling to Americans and Canadians. And okay, just a quick thing. In 2018, when we launched in July, we actually made, the end of July, we made about $30,000. In 2019, we made $288,000. And at that time, it was still just me and Justin Terrio. In 2020, we completed our own dedicated facility to make our own products that is certified kosher. And okay, sorry about that. Now in April 22, and everyone knows how it was with COVID. It was really a bumpy road, but we are resilient. In 2021, we did sign up with Unify, which is North America's biggest distributor for natural foods. And in December 21, we did sign up with Kihi, which is another great and North America's biggest distributor as well. And we are going to be in Sprouts markets across the US. Our channels are wholesale distribution to retailers, and we're also going to be penetrating the food service. We do supply right now mom and pop shops, pizzerias, but our plan is to land one of those big pizzerias chains. And we also are going to focus more as well on our direct to consumer via our online channels. Because of the current situation, it does shows that we have to do that as well. We are also coming with new products. We do have dessert crusts that are similar to our pizza crusts, and they are being used to make quick and easy cheesecake, whatever. It helps people that are on keto to stay on track. And we are also planning on coming with the cookies, sauces, mayonnaise, ketchup, the sky's the limit, ice cream. We're gonna do it all. At Sooo Ketolicious, we are determined to leave our mark in the keto market. And we are also planning, and we're definitely gonna capitalize on it. So I'm asking you guys to join us in our mission to better health, and you will be rewarded for it. Thank you for listening, and I will be turning the mic to my partner, Justin Terrio, who will be answering any questions.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Raja. I think, you know, a lot of the founding stories for businesses start with someone experiencing a problem and, you know, coming up with the solution that they would want to see in the market. So it's really great that you were able to achieve that. Justin, I know you're joining us for some questions here. So for those who may be a little bit less familiar, maybe you could tell us just a bit about the origins of the ketogenic diet and really what the market opportunity is for products within that space.
Hi, Justin Terrio. So the keto diet's actually been around for a lot longer than people think. I mean, prior to the agricultural revolution, that's pretty much all the way human beings ate. It's the way babies consume as well. But to get to more modern history, it was really popularized in the 1920s as an alternative to intermittent fasting to deal with epilepsy. And so intermittent fasting has been used all the way back into the ancient world to treat epilepsy. And so it just has a very similar impact on the body chemistry as intermittent fasting does. And so it was started to use in the 20s and 30s. But then when they came out with, drugs that could treat epilepsy, it sort of fell off. In terms of using it for dieting, so the Atkins diet in the 1970s, so that raised in popularity, and that's sort of like a keto diet, very similar in terms of, really low carbohydrate intake. In the late 80s, Oprah Winfrey popularized her version of the keto diet, but it really didn't start to pick up steam until about 2013, 2014, and that was coupled with the phenomenon of the podcast. And also with social media as well. And what really sort of drove it home is that, people are getting extremely good results really quickly. So, those before and after on social media, and that coupled with podcasts really propelled its popularity in terms of like a diet and a lifestyle. And so once it started to become a lot more popular in the last 10 years as a diet and a lifestyle, then the amount of further scientific research into benefits of keto for various autoimmune diseases, for reversing type 2 diabetes, for all sorts of different ailments, they're finding many benefits.
That's great. Thanks. For those listening today, we are going to take just a couple more minutes here and finish up some questions with the Sooo Keto team. So feel free to add some to the Q&A. One thing that I'm really curious about is I think there's really two unique features to the pizza, obviously one being the crust itself, but one just being the packaging. Like I can think back to having frozen pizza as a consumer in my freezer, and it takes up a considerable amount of room for the box, only to have additional packaging inside of it. And I think what you guys are doing is really, really innovative. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about just how you're making a premium product that's disrupting the pizza space, not only in terms of the crust itself, but also the packaging.
Yeah, so I mean, we wanted to do something a little bit different. And, before we even thought about doing our custom packaging, I mean, we were using, just clear vacuum seal bags. And we found that, after doing some lab testing, it significantly increases the shelf life of the crust. And it also, in terms of like a distribution channel for logistics, I mean, it takes up, maybe 1/5 of the space of what a traditional box would take up. So it's a lot more efficient that way. And then based on that, we look for options to do a custom vacuum seal bag. And yeah, we found a manufacturer that could do it for us, and that's what we're using now, and that's what we plan to use for our dessert crusts once we produce those custom packaging.
That's great. Absolutely. I know we're running over time here, so Raja covered some reasons to invest as well, but maybe just for those tuning in today, anything else you want to offer in terms of some reasons to invest and how they can support you on this mission?
So, I mean, it's been a long ride for me and my wife. I mean, it's just been, me and her, we've had some people in the kitchen with us helping with production, but in terms of, building this production facility, landing Unify, landing Sprouts, everything has just been us two together. And I feel like we've gotten the company in a position right now where we're just in the perfect position to scale growth. We have the two biggest North American distributors in the organic and natural food channel. We're doing an exclusive launch with Sprouts Markets in March. So our products will be on shelves in March of 2022 of this year. And so that's 378 stores. So that's just a huge boost for us. We have tons of irons in the fire. I won't mention them here in terms of expanding, our retail footprint in Canada as well. We have a production facility, we're vertically integrated right now without any major capital investments in terms of our production capabilities. We can, pump sales up to 10 million a year without any major, investments in capital expenditure. So I just feel we're in that perfect position right now where, we're very close to being in a position where we're profitable as well. So everything's looking good for us.
That's great. I want to thank both you and Raja for the presentation today. For those who do have questions about Sooo Ketolicious, you can go visit their campaign page, frontfundr.com/Sooo Ketolicious, and that's so with 3 O's. So keep that in mind. You can also go find them on the FrontFundr site in investment opportunities. Before we wrap up today, for anyone new to the call who's not as familiar with FrontFundr, just wanted to share some key information about who we are. So we are Canada's leading equity crowdfunding platform. We make it easy for all Canadians and everyday Canadians to invest in some of the most exciting startup and growth stage businesses from as little as $250. You got to see many of those exciting businesses here today. And we've supported many companies in their capital raise journey and many individuals on getting started in investing in the private capital markets. If you're eager to learn more about how to make an investment, if you haven't made one yet on the platform, I do encourage you to go visit our platform. That's just frontfundr.com. You can browse some of our FAQs, explore some of the companies, and if you have questions at any point as well, I do encourage you to visit support@frontfundr.com. Thanks so much. Bye.